तुम लोगों ने रिजल्ट देना है, ठीक है। सो टुडे आवर टॉपिक विल बी इंडिया फॉरेन पॉलिसी। What I can promise you with today's lecture is that once you attend this lecture with presence of mind and take it to your heart, इसके बाद सिर्फ तुम्हें करंट अफेयर्स और पढ़ने और बियॉन्ड दैट कुछ भी नहीं पढ़ना, सिर्फ करंट अफेयर्स। बेसिक इंडिया फॉरेन पॉलिसी के आइडियाज क्या है, हाउ फॉरेन पॉलिसीज आर इवॉल्व, हाउ दे आर मेड, व्हाट एग्जैक्टली दे आर डूइंग, हाउ दे वर डूइंग, व्हाई दे डिड इट, वो सारा मैं तुम्हें इस एक लेक्चर में करा दूंगा। एंड दिस लेक्चर वी कैन फिनिश बाय 6:30, नथिंग बियॉन्ड दैट। उसके बाद कोई बात करनी हो बात कर सकते हो, देन वी आर फ्री। दो इट इज नॉट माई क्लास टुडे, सो आई एम टेकिंग इट, सो दिस लेक्चर नीड्स ओनली दिस मच ऑफ टाइम। फॉरेन पॉलिसी में एक बात याद रखना, 80% क्वेश्चन सिर्फ करंट बेस्ड होंगे, जो 20% है उसके लिए ये लेक्चर है। डन। बिफोर वी स्टार्ट विद फॉरेन पॉलिसी, लेट्स अंडरस्टैंड फ्यू implications for you. What is foreign policy? What do you mean by foreign policy? Dealing with any other country. For what? For what? I said for what? For me, foreign policy is to further your national interest. It's to deal or not to deal. Even if you are not dealing with anybody, let's say if India was not dealing up to 1992 with Israel, it was part of your foreign policy. You decided in your foreign policy that I'm not going to deal with this country. What was the reason? इंडिया को अरब नेशन के साथ ज्यादा रिलेशन मेंटेन करने, इंडिया नीडेड कि अरब नेशंस हमारे को कश्मीर इशू पे सपोर्ट कर दें, प्लस ऑयल डिप्लोमेसी थी। हाउ कैन यू अफोर्ड कि तुम अरब नेशंस को अपनी तरफ हॉस्टाइल कर दो कि नहीं हम तो जूइश नेशन को रिकॉग्नाइज करते हैं। तो इवन इफ यू डोंट डील, यू आर फर्दरिंग योर नेशनल इंटरेस्ट। तो डीलिंग और नॉट डीलिंग, इट इज अबाउट फर्दरिंग योर नेशनल इंटरेस्ट। So foreign policy is a tool, it's a weapon, it's an instrument to further your national interest. Now what is national interest? National interest is national security. What is my national interest? My national interest is my national security. Now when I say it is national security, what I mean by national security? Now when I say it is national security, I mean border security, maritime security, space security, cyber security, energy security, food security, then you have border security, maritime, space, cyber, energy, food, technology security, environment security, then human resource security, then you have people of Indian origin who are your Indian diaspora abroad. You have to secure their security. Security of international treaties and obligations. I have signed some treaty with some nation. I am under some obligation to do something. So that is part of security of international treaties and obligations. So this is my national security. This is my national interest. So to further all this, इसमें economic security भी add कर सकते हो. 11th can be economic security, trade security, economic or trade security. So this is the canvas on which foreign policy is made, right? Now, when I make foreign policy, I keep all these things under consideration, and then I formulate a policy to deal or not to deal to what an extent I have to deal, and in what way I have to deal. Yeah, that clear? कोई doubt किसी का? These are simple things to understand, but we haven't thought on these lines otherwise. What is foreign policy? What are the instruments? Now, another thing, who all are involved in making foreign policy? And see, let's take it like this. There are multiple agencies involved in making of foreign policy. उसके लिए लिख लो agencies. हम इन एजेंसीज को कई बार बहुत कम समझ जाते हैं. Though there are multiple agencies involved, and through this multiple agency idea, we will understand that whether it is a democratic process or not. PM and PMO. Prime Minister खुद और PMO plus Cabinet Secretary and staff. They are involved in foreign policy. Then comes your external affair ministry. The minister himself plus his staff, including IFS officers. They are involved. Then empowered group of ministers. Empowered groups of ministers, or if there is no concept of empowered group of ministers, then Council of Ministers itself. Council of Ministers itself is involved in foreign policy formulation. When it is this group, prominent role is played by Finance Minister. He has to understand that what impact it will have if we do this kind of relation, develop this kind of relation with this kind of a nation. How Indian finances are to be secured, financial interests. Then your Commerce Minister. What kind of exim policies are to be adopted? Import export. Then your Defense Minister, to know that whether you are adequately equipped to face the threat or to join hands with anybody. Your Defense Minister is very important person here. Though it is external affairs, but Home Minister is very important. What exactly is happening within India, which is a domain of Home Ministry? You have to understand whether there is any external link to it or not. Is it that the Naxalites whom we are to tackle, it's an internal challenge, or they are being supported by outside agencies? So Home Minister will play a very important and crucial role in this as well. Over the time, since science and technology, cyber security kind of things have become, your S&T ministers too involved into this. Science and Technology Minister. So Finance Minister, Commerce Minister, Defense Minister, Home Minister, and your Science and Technology Minister. They all are involved in these kind of things. Now, when it comes to smart city projects, your Urban Development Minister, he himself becomes a part and parcel to this foreign policy mechanism. So now this Council of Ministers, these are the key players. Beyond this, any particular minister, your Civil Aviation Minister will be party to it when you are entering into any kind of open space areas with them. That you can bring as many flights as you want, or we can send as many flights as we want. So all those things, they all play a very crucial role in your foreign policy formulation. So you cannot ignore the role of ministers. Now it depends what kind of prime minister as a person we have. As if it is Mr. Nehru, who had such a keen interest in foreign policy, he didn't even bother to have a separate external affairs minister. Sardar Manmohan Singh for some time had external affairs ministry under his control as prime minister. The incumbent Prime Minister Modi, he himself is so active in foreign policy relationship that External Affairs Minister is on the second burner for external relations. So that depends to what an extent the other ministers will play active or dormant role. But every minister has a say and a role to play. So starting from PM and PMO, including Cabinet Secretariat staff, External Affairs Ministry, ministers and staff, including IFS officers, empowered group of ministers or council of ministers with finance minister, commerce, defense, home and science. Now, beyond this, the role of parliament plus the committees on foreign affairs. Parliament खुद भी role play करता है. Member of parliament at time raise questions in parliament about your foreign policy. When they raise questions, the minister concerned or sometimes the prime minister have to come and give reply on the spot. So that is parliament's intervention into your foreign policy domain. Then they have some committees formed for foreign policy. Their committees constantly keep on working for your foreign policy to develop amicable relations, to find permanent solutions to issues. So this is one structure, right? When we talk foreign policy, this is a structural approach to understand that which all agencies are involved in it. Now, beyond this, next is National Security Advisor. How can you forget the role of Mr. Ajit Doval, or for that case, any foreign diplomat who is basically your National Security Advisor? Then comes the role of your intelligence agencies. Intelligence agencies do play a very vital role through their direct or indirect involvement. Now, in these intelligence agencies, one is RAW, Research and Analysis Wing, which is particularly your external wing, external relation wing. Then your IB, Intelligence Bureau. Then military intelligence. They all play a role. There are multiple agencies. These three are very important. After your intelligence agencies, then comes the role of your media in all its variants. Print media, electronic media, and social networking sites. This media is handy because it brings in relation to the media public opinion about your foreign policy. So you cannot ignore public opinion. India at times have to involve in Sri Lanka and at times have to refrain from Sri Lanka. Indian Tamil public opinion will make a lot of difference. Whether you will involve in Sunni Shia conflicts working out in the Middle East, your Indian public opinion will be very crucial for that, right? So public opinion is very important as a component for your foreign policy formulation. Along with this public opinion, there is role of NGOs. Several of the NGOs are directly or indirectly involved through fundings or through other mechanisms. They too have a deep impact on foreign policy. They can be national NGOs or they can be international NGOs. Transparency International, they can come and talk about your human rights violations. Then Green International talk about your environment. They bring a change in your foreign policy orientation. So you cannot forget and downgrade the role of these NGOs. So these are the structural agencies that play a role in your foreign policy formulation. Beyond this, whosoever now come to your mind will be a part and parcel of these 9 institutions or structures who all play a role in your foreign policy, right? Without yahan tak. So by knowing that what is foreign policy, for what it is pursued, and at what levels it is debated and discussed upon, now comes the time to understand foreign policy of India in a different way. This is the time frame that we need to discuss today, right? What happened in 1947 is India became politically independent, but Indian leadership prior to this had involved itself in foreign policies. What for? When it was India's freedom struggle, we had to deal with outside the world to seek support for India's freedom struggle. As if during the course of World War One, people were trying to seek some support from Germany. Somebody was trying to seek support from Germany and Japan during the course of World War Two. During the process of decolonization, we were trying to establish relations with some of the Western nations or with America itself so that India can get free. Then, India being a victim of apartheid in the shape of only colonialism in India, we were always against colonialism and apartheid. So, after our independence, we played a very important role in decolonization in Africa. So, throughout this, our foreign policy has always been very active. During 1920s itself, there was one Afro-Asian summit where Pandit Nehru participated. That means he had a vision before India was free. And this Afro-Asian summit of 1920s can be seen in future as the inception for NAM. In 1950s and 60s, this Afro-Asian summit became NAM. So some of the hard work for the establishment of NAM was carried on even before independence. Another thing now, what Nehru said, mark these words, write them down. Nehru said, before even India became independent, Nehru said is, by the sheer size, comma, India is destined to play a vital role in international relations. India is destined to play a vital role in international relations. Now, why that important role? Size of a subcontinent, huge population, and then position geographically. Sitting in Indian Ocean, controlling almost the entire sea lane of commerce. That is the advantage that India had. Now, once Nehru said this, that means we had a clear vision that in future we are going to play a very important role. Now, what happened is, knowing that we have to play a very important role, we had to face few very serious challenges at the time of independence. So, our foreign policy can be understood in phases. 1947 to 1970 is phase 1. 1971 to 1990 is phase 2. 1990 to 2007, and then 2008 to 2016 and beyond that. These are the 4 phases in which we can understand India foreign policy. Now, when I say we became free and we were sure that we have to play some very important role, what vision we had? Vision in this phase was to play important role. Because we intended to play important role, we refrained from joining any bloc, be it capitalist, US bloc, or be it communist, Soviet bloc. Had it been we have decided to join either of these 2 blocs, we would have ended up being the subordinates of the person who was heading the bloc, that is US or Soviet Union. So we had to play an independent role. The result was NAM. NAM was the result because we don't want to toe the line of any other player. But even though we were the founding member, we were the brain behind NAM, that doesn't mean that we started playing very active role internationally. Now, what were the domestic challenges before we should start doing something? Internal challenges. Internal challenges. Before us, at the time when we became free, they were very crucial challenges, because if we do not take care of these challenges, we cannot grow as a nation, and only a grown-up nation can have a better foreign policy orientation. First challenge was integration of princely states. Integration of princely states, or we can say the bigger challenge to this one was, if this is point 2, first will be partition. Partition and resultant migration of people. So first challenge was partition and resultant migration of people. Second was integration of princely states. Third one was demand for linguistic reorganization of states. Fourth, after partition, integration of princely states, demand for linguistic reorganizations of state. Then next was to eradicate poverty, disease, hunger, illiteracy, and unemployment. These were the challenges: to eradicate poverty, disease, hunger, illiteracy, and unemployment. Now I hope you will start understanding and even appreciating why India had to pursue a foreign policy of having good relations, cordial relations with both of them, so that both of them should come forward to help us eradicate all these problems. There was huge hunger, huge poverty, disease problem, illiteracy, and unemployment in India. So we were dependent on outside support. So our foreign policy has to take this into big consideration at that point of time. Beyond that, lack of industrialization due to colonial rule. British never invested in industrialization of India. So there was lack of industrialization due to colonial rule. So in 1947, the internal challenges being partition and resultant migration of people, integration of princely states, demand for linguistic reorganization of states, to eradicate poverty, disease, hunger, illiteracy, and unemployment, and finally, lack of industrialization due to colonial rule. To add on to this, in 1948 itself, there was Kashmir issue. Kashmir issue made international dispute due to Pak intrusion. Due to Pak intrusion, this was further made complex by Sino-India conflict of 1962 and Indo-Pak War in 1965. So now if we again count challenges and the things that we have to face: partition, resultant migration of people, integration of princely states, demand for linguistic reorganizations, eradication of poverty, disease, hunger, illiteracy, unemployment, lack of industrialization due to colonial rule, 1948 Kashmir issue made international dispute due to Pak intrusion, then Sino-India conflict 1962, Indo-Pak War 1965. If I talk about Sino-India conflict 1962, it was a disaster. Now, because 62 was a disaster, what we realized out of it? India realized post 1962 that Panchsheel, ideologically too good. Ideologically it is too good, but pragmatically, if I become pragmatically not panacea to all ills. पंचशील करके पीसफुल को एग्जिस्टेंस की बातें करके सुनने में बहुत अच्छी लगेंगी, बट टू ऑल दीज प्रॉब्लम्स दैट वी फेस, दिस इज नो सोल्यूशन. So we have to now think about strengthening our defense capabilities. Strengthening our defense capabilities. This was the tactical decision taken in 1962, that we have to develop our infrastructure so that we can safeguard our sovereignty. and integrity. Right? So enough of challenges to start with. So instead of focusing on your international relationship, you have to focus on solving these problems. So one by one, you have to solve these problems through your both internal and external relations. Because if it would have been that while taking care of your Kashmir issue, if entire Muslim community, international fraternity would have turned hostile, your relations would have been jeopardized. So it was a tight rope walk for India foreign policy diplomacy, which we did wonderfully well. Now, how these problems were solved? For partition and resultant migration issue, though the problem persisted for pretty long, but Nehru Liaquat Pact was signed. Nehru Liaquat Pact was signed for partition and resultant disputes. It was signed between India and Pakistan to solve the issue of refugees and for resettlement of displaced people. Nehru Liaquat Pact. Liaquat was the counterpart. He was Prime Minister of Pakistan, Liaquat Ali. To solve this, we did it. When it comes to second challenge, integration of princely states, the role of Iron Man of India, Sardar Patel. It was very crucial. The states were made to sign instrument of accession into Indian Union. Instrument of accession was signed with them by making it categorically clear that what we are going to constitute by entering into this instrument or by signing this instrument of accession is indestructible union of destructible states. That was made clear while making your constitution between 1947 and 49. So by the time these states were to be incorporated, it was made perfectly clear that it is going to be an indestructible union. You are not going to come into and move out at your free will. So that won't be the case like. Then starting with 1956 Andhra decision, this issue was starting to be tackled, and by 1966 Punjab, Haryana, Himachal, they have been bifurcated, and now the issue was left only in the northeastern side. Rest of India was to a large extent peaceful. After northeast will be settled by 80s, next will be the turn of Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand and Uttarakhand. That was in 2000s, and then recently last year only Telangana. But for that time, the major concern was Punjab, Haryana, Himachal, and along with that Andhra, separate from Tamil, then Maharashtra and Gujarat. So that all was solved within this time. So internally now there was a scenario where it was political stability and social stability. To eradicate poverty, disease, hunger, illiteracy, unemployment, lack of industrialization due to all colonial rule, what we started doing is immediately after independence, 5-year planning. 5-year planning, wherein with the second 5-year plan, we worked on Dr. Mahalanobis's model, on the basis of which industrialization process was initiated. So 5-year plans, and in these 5-year plans, the second 5-year plan on the basis of Dr. Mahalanobis, which gives significance for heavy industry in India. And to further it and to supplement it, there were 2 industrial policy documents released. Industrial Policy 1948 and Industrial Policy 1956. Industrial Policy 1948 and Industrial Policy 1956. For your hunger, for your problems like hunger, you had to seek foreign support. So you had to sign PL 480 with USA, whereunder you got wheat from US. PL 480 with USA for your food security. But realizing that for how long you can be dependent on others, you started working towards Green Revolution. So Green Revolution was the answer to the problem. Again, for Green Revolution, you require new technologies, and for those new technologies, you need to have relations with foreigners who had an advantage above you in their agricultural research and technologies. So you started collaborating with different nations, but internally you started establishing your agriculture universities, and by that, the entire infrastructure required for it. So this was taken care of. Now comes Kashmir issue. It will take some time to resolve. Basically, till date, we are fighting for this. And then the conflicts, other conflicts. So this is part of your foreign policy. You have to manage your foreign policy. Is basically a jugglery where you become a very good juggler so that you can develop good relations with others and make them do what you want. At the same time, not doing what they want from you. So you want Pakistan to agree to things that you intend them to, but at the same time you don't want you to agree to what Pakistan says. You want them to understand that Kashmir is your part. You don't want to understand that Kashmir can be their part. You want the Chinese to understand that Arunachal is integrally part of India. You don't want yourself to understand that Arunachal can be part of China. So this is foreign policy. Clear? So these are the challenges in the phase 1 and how you solved it. But you did not at the same time lost your vision for your future role as an international player. So you continued doing things with NAM, and through NAM you focused on what exactly is happening internationally. So if it was Cold War time and you have not joined any group, there was no leaning ever towards any group. If it was Russia who made any effort during that Cold War regime that they tried to destabilize the international peace, you condemned the Soviet actions. And if it was US, you condemned the actions of US. So when it was Korean crisis, you condemned US. When it was Vietnam, you condemned US. When it was Afghanistan, you condemned Russia. So every time whenever there was a need, whosoever was disturbing international peace, you openly condemned the aggressor. So that was India's foreign policy orientation in the first phase. By doing all this in your phase 1, what you ended up gaining, can anybody summarize in one line? Through all these things in phase 1, what you ended up doing? Very good. It was basically to bring about stability, internal stability. To a large extent, it can be stability politically, it can be stability economically. So you were trying to bring about internal stability so that you are free from internal challenges. Now to focus on external challenges to make more contribution towards your internal prosperity. After stability comes prosperity. So first you ensure internal stability so that you can work towards internal prosperity. So phase 1 can be summed up like the phase of internal stability for internal prosperity, future prosperity. This was phase 1. So it was not what exactly you wanted, but it was too good to happen. That in less than about 25 years of your being free, you achieved a lot of success. Right? Now, once you are internally stable, now you could work for your regional role. So phase 1 was internal consolidation for stabilization, for future prosperity. See, unless you are a prosperous nation, you cannot expect to play bigger roles. So internal consolidation for stabilization to ensure future prosperity for the nation. This was phase 1 and you achieved it. Now phase 2 comes when you talk about your regional rise. Regional rise. Within the region, you intend to now make others realize that India is a serious player. India is a player who has to be taken up seriously. So phase 1 starts with very important thing. Second Indo-Pak War and birth of Bangladesh. So in one way you made the international community realize that what seriousness you mean and how seriously you are to be taken. Bangladesh has been created and Mission India is accomplished. Mission India means that we are not ready to tolerate human right violation in our neighborhood and we are not ready to bear the burden of influx of those people into our territory. So we have to help their cause even if the international community is not coming forward for this. And this role is to be played because we see ourselves as a leader in the region and a leader cannot tolerate instability and chaos in the region. So Pakistan has to mend its way or Pakistan has to bend its way. So finally Pakistan had to bend and it was Bangladesh created. Now when we take a decision, we always pay some price for that decision that we take. what happened in India post Bangladesh creation is the price that we had to pay. It was paid in the shape of terrorism in Punjab or the Kashmir issue being boiled into a regional conflict, and then Pakistan tried to make it international dispute. But remember, again, a very big diplomatic win for India over the dispute lingering from phase 1. Post Second Indo-Pak War or Bangladesh War, 1972, we entered into Shimla Agreement, where we made Pakistan agree to sign a document making Kashmir a bilateral issue instead of being an international issue. So signing of Shimla Agreement and Kashmir issue being projected as a bilateral issue. पाकिस्तान अब 1972 से लेके 2016 आ गया है. Whenever Pakistan try to rack up Kashmir issue at any international platform, India always remind them of Shimla Agreement. Buddies, we cannot discuss at international platforms. It's a bilateral dispute. We too will sit and resolve it. It's not to be discussed at international level platforms, right? And to add cherry on a cake, by far now in 2016, P5, all permanent 5 of Security Council, they have agreed to the fact that Kashmir is a bilateral dispute. America says it's a bilateral dispute. Russia always said so. Even China says so. France and Britain, they all agreed that it's a bilateral dispute between India and Pakistan. By virtue of this recognition by P5, now UN role in Kashmir issue has almost lost its credibility. So there is nothing credible in UN role in Kashmir dispute. It is a dispute between only India and Pakistan. Even if the separatists of Kashmir want to enter into this discussion, India recalls Pakistan and reminds Pakistan that it's a bilateral dispute between India and Pakistan. Not even the separatist leader of Kashmir can enter into talks when two of us discuss. If they have to discuss, they can discuss with us what problems they have with Indian regime, or they can talk to you, which we don't accept otherwise. So it has strongly been projected as a bilateral issue. There would have been the presence of international forces in Kashmir, UN peacekeeping forces. So then it would not have been an integral part of India. It would have been a disputed area, right? So in 1971, you did this. Now, once you have shown that you are flexing your muscles as a regional power, how can a regional power be a power without nukes? So 1974, Pokhran 1, and India goes nuclear. 1974, Pokhran 1, first nuclear explosions by India. Though it is India, so everything has to be peaceful. So it was peaceful nuclear explosion. PNE हुआ था, peaceful nuclear explosion. बुद्ध स्माइल कर गए थे. गौतम बुद्ध कहते हैं नॉन वायलेंट है ये तो. भारत वचनबद्ध रहता है इस तरह के काम करने के लिए कि ये एटम बॉम्ब भी बनाता है तब भी ये पीसफुल होता है. That's the beauty of being India and Indian, right? So you become a nuclear power. Once you become a nuclear power in the subcontinent, obvious was the outcome. Your smaller neighbors started coveting you. They started fearing you that India is blowing out of proportions, and there is a possibility that India may start humming us with a stick, and it can be a carrot and stick policy towards us. So to stop India being big brother, Bangladesh took an initiative, and with the initiative of Bangladesh, an idea emerged. Let us form anti-India grouping called SAARC. Bangladesh ne idea diya, let's make SAARC. All neighborhood of India, smaller nations like Pakistan, Nepal, Bhutan, Burma, Bhutan, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, we should all come together as a lobby to face the challenges that India poses for us. In 1980s, when NAM was being conceptualized and inceptionalized, India took over the command of NAM. Sorry, this SAARC. India became the undisputed leader of SAARC. It was something like Indira Gandhi ji telling all these leadership of the neighborhood countries, क्या खेल रहे हो खेले खेले, हमें तो बुलाया नहीं, और बैटिंग तो हम ही करेंगे पहले, ओपनिंग बैटिंग हम करते होते हैं, और जब हमें तुम 10 बार आउट कर लोगे तब तुम्हारी बारी आ जाएगी. तो नाम कुछ ऐसा बना के छोड़ दिया हमने. इंडिया बन गया जी, बाय डिफॉल्ट बन गया सर. वो सोच रहे थे, हमने बना लिया. तुम सबको इकट्ठा, तुम सारे सोच रहे थे कि इंडिया के खिलाफ बनाएंगे. तुम 2-3 बार मीटिंग करते, एक मीटिंग में हम साथ बैठ गया के सुना तुम ऐसा कुछ सोच रहे, चलो बना ही लेते हैं, क्या गलत बात है. इट्स लाइक एओ ह्यूम सेइंग लेट्स मेक कांग्रेस टुगेदर. So while you are trying to make Congress, you want to drive the British out, let British make the Congress for you. But then British were not that smart. They did not become the leaders of Congress officially, but India officially became the big brother of SAARC nations. So that is it. So by doing this, now you have resolved major issues and you have emerged on the global map as a regional power. Now you were trying to do everything. In 1971 was a very crucial time when you were to fight against Pakistan during Cold War time, when Pakistan had already joined Southeast Asian Treaty Organization and had become an ally of US. So there was every possibility that when you fight against Pakistan, US or US-led NATO forces may involve themselves into the conflict. But adhering to your NAM principles without compromising with them, what you ended up doing is 1971 you signed 25 years treaty with USSR, treaty of peace and friendship with Soviet Union. It was before Bangladesh war that you ended up signing this treaty with Soviet Union, 25 years treaty of peace and friendship. So you signed a treaty with USSR. At international platform, many players, including those Western allies and Pakistan and the other people, they made a lot of hue and cry that India is no more non-aligned. They have aligned towards Soviet Union. To brush aside these kind of allegations, you offered same treaty to America, that we are not joining any group militarily. It's a treaty of peace and friendship. So we are neutral when it comes to groups. We are not neutral when it comes to international affairs. At the very time when NAM was formed, what Nehru said, NAM is not neutrality. NAM is to have independent foreign policy. We are not going to toe the line of Soviets or the Americans. We are going to be independent in our foreign policy. We are not going to be neutral that what is happening, we are not participating in it. We will participate on merit basis and decide according to our understanding and as per the good of the global community. So this is our commitment, right? So by signing this treaty, India was ensured for few more things. Nuclear fuel for your nuclear reactors in 74. Had it been not in place, your nuclear plants would have been of no use. So Russia was the first nation to offer you nuclear fuel. Because you were not signatory of any military pact and you were a NAM nation, even America had to come forward for your Tarapur plant. So even during the course of Cold War, you were having advantage of having nuclear support from both the lobbies, USSR and US. So this was one of the biggest feather in the cap of India foreign policy of NAM कि कोल्ड वॉर के टाइम पे दोनों ग्रुप तुम्हारी सपोर्ट कर रहे थे और दोनों तुम्हें न्यूक्लियर टेक्नोलॉजी देने को तैयार है. Had it been कि तुमने एक ग्रुप ज्वाइन किया था दूसरा तुम्हें सैबोटाज कर गया होता. So this is how you achieved doing this. So everything was going pretty fine for India. Soviets were your friend and you were feeling secure, safe. They were ready to trade with you according to your stature, giving you all the concessions, transferring you all the technologies and everything. Unfortunately, 1990, USSR disintegrated. The signs were visible. It is not that all of a sudden it disintegrated. The signs started to show up on the horizon from 1883-84 onwards. 83, 84, 85, things started becoming clear, and in a span of about 4-5 years, then USSR disintegrated. That is why there was a smart shift in India foreign policy through their trade policy. See, now it is the end of communist regime. The leader of the communist world is gone. Now is the time, and it cannot happen all of a sudden that here USSR disintegrate and here India comes up with the policy of liberalization, globalization and privatization. Immediately at the same time, you come up with the policy of liberalization, globalization and privatization, with which started your phase 3, 1990 to 2007. So it was a clear sign that socialist good, but now India is open to all kind of ideas. We are very liberal. End of USSR means India is liberal. India is global. Agreed that for a while Indo-Russian relations were at the back burner. You were trying to inculcate confidence among other players internationally, but then write one line. That one line will be suffice to give answer to any question. The line is, the beauty of the post Cold War, the beauty of the post Cold War world order is the fact that any nation can cultivate relations with any other nation without the fear of losing any other player, any other nation. So that was the beauty of post-Cold War world order. Now India can have multiple friends. See, when people say during Cold War it was bipolar, after Cold War the world has become multipolar. Instead of calling it multipolar, you should note a word and write it immediately, and try always use that word. It is polycentric. After Cold War, the world became polycentric. Centers of power कई जगह emerge कर गए. If I talk about new centers of power, BRICS is a new center of power. IPSA is a new center of power. ASEAN is a new center of power. Even SEO is a new center of power. So it has become a polycentric world order and not a multipolar. There are no more poles. There are centers of power. So we live in a polycentric world now. US hegemony कहाँ दिखती है तेरे को बता जल्दी से. एनसीईआरटी को दिखती है अभी वाली न्यू वाली में इमीडिएटली उसके बाद के अभी तक जो यूएस हेजेमनी है ना वो ट्रांजिशनल फेज थी. डिसइंटीग्रेशन ऑफ यूएसएसआर, यूएस हेजेमनी, एंड देन ऑल ऑफ अ सडन अ बाइपोलर वर्ल्ड बिकमिंग पॉलीसेंट्रिक. सो दैट वाज द ट्रांजिशनरी स्टेज, ट्रांजिटरी. ओके, तो फेज 3 में तुमने नेक्स्ट स्टेप लॉजिकली क्या लेना है आफ्टर एलपीजी? पोखरण 2, 1998 पोखरण 2. बुध हैज टू स्माइल वंस अगेन. 1998 पोखरण 2 and completion of integrated missile system. Now if you look at the things as they have worked out, as our technology teacher, once he will be in class, he will be discussing with you from 1999 to 2004, 5, 6, 7, 8, Prithvi, Agni, Nag, Trishul, all these missiles have been integrated into defense forces, right? Air versions, earth, with the army, with navy, to everybody. And along with this, indigenous defense infra. Indigenous defense infra. Working on your indigenous missiles, working on BrahMos is one example, with collaboration of Russians, but working in India. Then development of Arjun, the main battle tank. Arjun, main battle tank. Then your indigenously developed nuclear submarine, Arhant. So this is the time when you were building up your defense infra. And at the same time, during this phase, this is the phase of your global rise. Third phase is the phase of global rise of India. Now, because this is the phase of global rise, what exactly you did? You become a lender from a creditor. India becomes a lender from being a creditor nation. श्रीलंका को पैसा, बांग्लादेश को पैसा, अफगानिस्तान को पैसा, बर्मा को, भूटान को, नेपाल को, African nations को. So you started giving a lot of money. In this phase, there was one small test for India foreign policy, and that was Kargil invasion, 1999. Kargil invasion in 1999. You can see it in two ways. People say it is failure of your intelligence. Agreed. Yes, it was failure of intelligence. So a nation is like an individual. You learn from your follies, your mistakes, and you improve yourself. So post 1999, after that Kargil intrusion in India, you have developed such an infra that, leaving aside one Pak attack and two recent attacks, which we can discuss in a different light as well, the incidents of intrusions into India have been curtailed to individual level intrusions and not of armed intrusions of rebellions into India. So after Kargil, you started developing your infra. Intelligence infra developed. Moreover, this testing time brought to light another fact. P5 condemned Pakistan for violating territorial sovereignty of India. The P5 condemned Pakistan for violating territorial sovereignty of India, though Pakistan was very optimistic that China will stand with them. But to their utter dismay, China condemned Pak action of entering into Indian territory. Pakistan? Only Kashmir is bilateral, it's not Pakistan. So Pakistan bilateral issue is Kashmir dispute. But entering into the territory that is controlled by India for the time being, even if it's a dispute, see, I tell you something, it's between you and me, right? It's our bilateral issue. That whether this car belongs to you or me, that's a bilateral issue. Now, once you enter my house to pick up the keys, then it cannot be bilateral. Na? I have to ask my neighbors, look at this, what she is doing to me. So don't do it. Okay? All right. So after this, now what happens next is the final phase. Acknowledgement of India as a global power. Last phase, acknowledgement of India as a global power. Now, when I say it is acknowledgement of India as a global power, the biggest thing happen is Indo-US nuclear deal. Indo-US nuclear deal. 2008 onwards it started, the process started. And NSG waiver. Indo-US nuclear deal and NSG waiver. So that was recognition of India as a global power. Even US president in 2010 acknowledged the fact that India is not a developing nation, India is a developed nation. And the turning point is 2010, remember that year, 2010, all P5 heads of the states visited India in a single year. P5 heads of the states, USSR say president, Russian president, American president, French president, British prime minister, and Chinese president. They all visited India. One on one, they visited India, and all of them voted confirming that India is the rightful claimant for UNSC. India being a rightful claimant for UNSC. So what is left now is only a permanent seat in UN Security Council. Rest all India has achieved from 47 to 2016. So left behind is only a permanent seat, rest all achieved. And as we were discussing the other day, what's so important about UNSC now? Knowing that it is just a feather in a cap. So India already is wearing a cap with many feathers. So it can only add one more feather to our cap, that we are permanent member in Security Council, knowing that even if there is a provision of veto in permanent Security Council, those P5 members have their vetoes, but how many times those vetoes have worked perfectly? What beyond that the permanent 5 have? But for only veto, when it was the decision of the Americans that they intend to invade Iraq, China and Russia used the veto that it should not be, but America had its way and they went ahead. Now in case of Ukraine and Georgia, America and other members, they are using their veto that Russia should not do this. But what Russia is to do, Russia is doing it. So what is the glory of being a veto holder? So whatsoever the glorious things are, India is already having them in their arsenal. So I suppose this is the summary of entire foreign policy. These are the stages, these are the phases, these are the ups and downs of India foreign policy. Now to add one more thing to this entire issue, you can write throughout this journey, throughout this journey, but for one down, that is when India suffered defeat in 1962 at the hands of China, comma, India has successfully seen as the leader of the third world. एक बार जब चाइना से आ रहे थे तो थर्ड वर्ल्ड को ये लगा था, डेवलपिंग नेशंस को, कि इंडिया हमारा लीडर नहीं बन सकता, इंडिया तो खुद को डिफेंड नहीं कर सकता. बट बियॉन्ड दैट यू हैव प्लेड सच स्मार्ट गेम्स दैट थर्ड वर्ल्ड नाउ एक्नॉलेजेस यू एज देयर लीडर. What India says that environment meets, the third world agrees to it. What India says for IMF reforms, the third world agrees to it. What India says about UN reforms, the third world agrees to it. So whenever there is any international dispute issue to be discussed, what India says, the third world agrees to it. Right? So the biggest example of this third world leadership for India comes in 2005. In 2005, when it was the 50th anniversary of NAM. 1955 में बेडांग कॉन्फ्रेंस हुई थी जहां पे नैम कंसीव किया गया था. 2005 में वहीं इंडोनेशिया में 50 इयर्स ऑफ नैम सेलिब्रेट हुआ था. 2005 50 इयर्स ऑफ नैम, एंड इट वाज सरदार मनमोहन सिंह who led the delegates on that historic path. Sardar Manmohan Singh led the delegates on that historic path, underlining the fact that the third world community considered India as the leader. China भी present था, but Manmohan Singh ji led all the delegates on that historic path, on that red carpet. अलग बात है मनमोहन सिंह जी उस दिन भी बोले नहीं थे, but he led the delegates, और सरदार जी को उन्होंने खुद पकड़ के अपने आगे किया था कि आप हमें लीड करो, इंडिया इज द लीडर फॉर द थर्ड वर्ल्ड. चाइना के प्रेसिडेंट खुद स्वयंभू प्रकट होने की कोशिश कर रहे थे कि मैं पहले स्टेप ले लूं, बट देन ऑल दोज अफ्रीकन लीडर्स दे ब्रॉट मनमोहन सिंह जी, सरदार जी तुसी आओ, तुसी अगे चलो. मैं उनको फीलिंग आती शायद उस दिन वहां पे कहीं होना जाए, बोले सोने हाल सारा अफ्रीका गया सत श्री अकाल, बट देन मनमोहन सिंह जी चुपचाप उन्होंने अंदर लगे कमरे च बिठाया, बिना कुछ कहे कहता, yes I understand that I am your leader. So that was beauty of Manmohan Singh ji. बोलते कम थे, करते ज्यादा थे. Done. So this is all foreign policy. Now you read any book, nothing beyond this you can ever get from any book. एक मैं चीज तुम्हें और समझाऊंगा अभी, उसके साथ हमारा ये लेक्चर कंक्लूड होगा. Beyond that, now only currents can be added. कि आजकल रिलेशंस में क्या हो रहा है, बाकी तो कुछ है ही नहीं है इसके अलावा. और इससे अलावा वो पूछते भी कुछ नहीं है, या शिमला एग्रीमेंट पूछते हैं, या ताशकंद पूछ लेते हैं, या चाइना की 62 की वॉर का पूछ लेते हैं, या अमेरिका का इंडिपेंडेंस के टाइम का पूछ लेते हैं, कोल्ड वॉर के ड्यूरेशंस का. वो मैंने तुम्हें सारे आइडियाज दे दिए. इफ एनीबॉडी हु इज एमिंग फॉर 2017 इज सिटिंग विद अस टुडे, दे कैन एनी टाइम नाउ पिक अप अ बुक कॉल्ड इंडिया फॉरेन पॉलिसी बाय राजीव सिकरी एंड स्टार्ट रीडिंग इट. रीड दैट बुक फ्रीली विदाउट हैविंग एनी नोशन फिक्स कि मुझे इतने दिनों में खत्म करनी है. It can be finished in 7 days, it can be finished in 15 days, it can take 1 month, 45 days, 2 months. Beyond that, stop preparing for this exam. If in 2 months time you cannot read that book, then stop preparing for this exam. देखो अब एक चीज और समझ के जाओ बस. अगर तुम राजीव सिकरी की बुक भी आज से पढ़ोगे, मैं तुम्हें उस पूरी बुक की समरी भी इसी टॉपिक में करा देता हूँ, which will be another way of understanding the current scenario of India foreign policy. You know. If this is India, right, towards our west, we start with Pakistan, we go to Afghanistan, from Afghanistan we go into Middle East. Middle East आ गया. What other name is given to Middle East? West Asia. We go into West Asia, Iran, Iraq and all those oil rich nations, and then we go beyond to USA and Europe. So this is your look west. This is your west side. What is all this about? This region is first your neighborhood. Then you have your extended neighborhood. Then you have arc of energy. यहाँ सारा oil पड़ा हुआ है. This is your arc of energy. So from neighborhood to extended neighborhood to arc of energy to आर्क ऑफ प्रोस्पेरिटी। यूरोप और यूएसए के साथ तुम ट्रेड करते हो प्रोस्पेरिटी के लिए। So this is your Western way of looking at your world around. Up to this is arc of instability. Arc of instability, and this is the hotbed of terror infra, the AFPAC region. So your neighborhood and extended neighborhood comes in arc of instability. Beyond that, even it is arc of instability now extended to the region of IAS region. So this is your arc of instability in the western side. Now let's move towards the eastern side. In your east, you start with Bangladesh, then you have Nepal, then there comes the big players like China, then there is beyond China you have Japan, then there is Korea, and then Vietnam, all these nations towards your east, right? So now here with Bangladesh and China in your east, immediate neighborhood, there again becomes a arc of instability. Arc of instability, again the main issue here is border dispute. So do you have border dispute with Pakistan, and you have proxy war issue with Pakistan. Border dispute and proxy war. So on both sides, east and west, you have first to encounter arc of instability. Then beyond this, when we move from China included, Korea, Japan and Vietnam, again there is an arc of prosperity, where you can do some good trade. कोरिया के साथ ट्रेड करो, जापान के साथ ट्रेड करो, सैमसंग मंगवा लो, हुंडई मंगवा लो, whatever you want you can get it from there, टोयोटा मंगवा लो, सारा कुछ वहीं से आ रहा है, ट्रेड सारा उनके साथ हो रहा है. So here you have ASEAN to talk to. Here there is SCO to talk to, Shanghai Cooperation Organization, and then there is ASEAN. Mekong Ganga project की बातें भी इस तरफ की हैं. To tackle to your immediate neighborhood, excluding China, to tackle to this, you have your SAARC. Now to extend your west to Africa. Now in Africa, Africa comes in the arc of both, arc of energy, arc of stability, instability, and arc of prosperity. Africa includes all these opportunities for you. Africa is arc of instability. अफ्रीका में खुद में प्रॉब्लम्स हैं, राइट? टेररिज्म है और बहुत सारे इश्यूज हैं. अफ्रीका में हाइड्रोकार्बन्स हैं, दैट इज आर्क ऑफ एनर्जी. अफ्रीका में ट्रेड प्रोस्पेक्ट्स हैं, आर्क ऑफ प्रोस्पेरिटी. सो दैट इज व्हाई योर फोकस इज मोर टुवर्ड्स अफ्रीका. बेसिकली इट्स नॉट जस्ट यू, इट्स अबाउट एवरीबॉडी. इवन चाइना इज फोकसिंग सो मच ऑन अफ्रीका. So here your NAM will be very helpful to you. Throughout you have been connected with Africa, and there is a very famous quote for India-Africa relations. What Gandhi is to Africa, what Gandhi is to Africa, Mandela can never be to India. तुमने तो अफ्रीका के हर घर में गांधी उठाया हुआ है, उनको पता है गांधी कौन है, इसलिए तुम उनके साथ करेंसी स्वैप में भी कहते हो ले जाओ हमारे नोट, कोई चक्कर नहीं. देखा करो कि एक था बंदा जिसने तुम्हारे वहां से काम शुरू किया था हमारा, तुम्हारे लिए लड़ा था, तुम्हारे राइट्स के लिए, तुम्हारे कलर अपार्थाइड के लिए, सब तुम्हारे लिए किया है. रादर तुम्हारे वहां से सीख सूख के वापिस आके इंडिया में धमाल मचाई है उसने, और तुम्हारे वहां तो फिर कपड़े पूरे पहनता था, हमारे यहाँ धोती शुरू कर दी थी. तो सी, दिस इज योर गांधी एंड दिस इज आवर गांधी, बट मंडेला बिलोंग्स टू यू, so keep him, you call him African Gandhi. So what if we today call Mandela of Punjab? There are so many new issues. So this is it. Now let's talk about look north. North में क्या आता है? North में आता है CIS, Commonwealth of Independent States, जो USSR से टूटे हैं. कजाकिस्तान, उज्बेकिस्तान, किर्गिस्तान, तुर्कमेनिस्तान, वो पूरी बेल्ट प्लस पार्ट्स ऑफ रशिया. That is your look north policy. Now this is for you. old friends from the USSR era. They are your old friends. This is arc of energy. Hydrocarbons and other energy resources are available in this belt as well. Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan mein. So you have to be very cautious dealing with them. But because of those disturbances and Islamic fundamentalism, this again becomes a arc of instability. Arc of instability. So again, you have to be very careful dealing in this region. This is very important. Being old friends, you cannot afford to neglect them. While dealing them, you cannot ignore the idea of instability. So now finally you have look south. South, small Sri Lanka, island nation, and then the entire Indian Ocean rim. All the littoral states in Indian Ocean rim. Mauritius and all those like areas. So this is your South Wala region. The biggest challenge is instability due to piracy. Piracy is the biggest challenge in Indian Ocean. Sea piracy towards the African regions, it's a lot of a big challenge. Then prosperity through sea lane of commerce. Prosperity through sea lane of commerce. Another challenge, Mumbai type attacks. So maritime security is a big challenge in this region. Instability है तो maritime security is a big challenge. So now to tap the potentials from arc of prosperity, you have to cultivate good foreign relations with these nations. To ensure that the arc of instability is not a challenge for you, you have to make allies and you have to play active role in all these regions. You have to ensure their collective growth and collective prosperity. To ensure that this arc of instability and arc of prosperity is used so that you can have more and more energy resources for yourself, you have to always be involved and not isolated from foreign policy of other players. So this is the summary of India foreign policy needs and understandings. Now, so pick up any book, read any book, look at any nation. You have adequate infra available with you to how to understand the relations. So 2017, start reading book by Sikri sir. Others, 2016 people who are aiming for 2016 pre, don't read Ajit Sikri now. What we're gonna do, once you sit for your pre is done, we will wait for your pre-result, right? Why pre-result? Because before that result, we will do some other things. Like governance can be done, security can be done, but IR will be kept only for last 1 month. अगर तुम्हारा मेंस दिसंबर में है तो हम नवंबर मिड में IR के 7 लेक्चर्स करेंगे. उसमें जितनी रिसेंट डेवलपमेंट्स होंगी, जो नई ट्रीटी ऑब्लिगेशन इंडिया ने की होंगी, जो एग्रीमेंट्स किए होंगे, वो सारे करंटली अपडेट करके चार्ट ऐसे ना देंगे, लुक ईस्ट में, लुक वेस्ट में, लुक साउथ में, लुक नॉर्थ में किन किन देशों से क्या किया है. अगर इंडिविजुअल देश के साथ तुम्हारे से क्वेश्चन पूछा गया, राइट अ गुड आंसर. इफ दे कलेक्टिवली आस्क कि लुक ईस्ट में क्या किया, तो उसका भी आंसर बना लेंगे. डन. सो नाउ यू कैन रीड एनी बुक. Whosoever is not well versed, वो पहले +2 वाली NCERT पढ़ सकते हैं, उसके बाद वो राजीव सिकरी पढ़ सकते हैं. क्लियर है जी? So tomorrow your social issue will start. Thank you everybody. Substantiate, किसी चीज को substantiate करने का मतलब होता है उसको प्रूव करना. Any online student, if you have any query, you can write a comment on it. We will get back to you. Or you can have my email ID. Online students can have my email ID. It's manuraj Manuraj, then malhotra, no space, all small letters, @gmail.com. Thank you.